Welcome to Bonn Park. I'm Sarah Geidlinger.
And I'm Marshall Ward.
And this is our very special 150th episode of Bonn Park. Man, are we excited.
Yeah, we really, really are.
This episode of Bonn Park is brought to you by Google Waterloo. Google's mission is to organize the world's information and make it universally accessible and useful. As Google's Canadian engineering headquarters, Google Waterloo is a proud member of the Waterloo region and community. Thanks, Google. But we've never had this many people at the table before.
Right. I was going to ask if you've done a podcast.
Four was the max.
All right.
Usually manageable. This should get a little
This is fun, though. This will be fun.
It's real, right? The more authentic it is,
100%
better.
All right.
Welcome to Bonn Park.
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 Welcome to Bonn Park. I'm Sarah Geidlinger.
And I'm Marshall Ward.
And today we have a very special episode of Bonn Park for you.
This is our 150th episode.
And we're celebrating by having a roundtable about Web3. We have found some great local Waterloo women who are interested in the world of Web3, and we're going to unpack it today and find out what it's all about.
This episode has been released one day earlier than our usual schedule as we celebrate the launch of our brand new Bonn Park website.
So please check it out. It's bonnpark.com, and we're so proud of all the work that's gone into it. We want to show you what we've been up to. So Marshall, before we start this episode, why don't we go through a few quick definitions of some of the terms we're going to be talking about today about Web3?
That is a great idea, Sarah.
Okay.
So let's start with, what is Web3?
I think this is a complicated question, but let's go here. Web3 is like the internet. It's the third generation of the evolution of web technologies, or what we know as the World Wide Web.
And what is blockchain?
So when we talk about blockchain, it's a shared, unchangeable ledger that facilitates the process of recording information and transactions and assets in a peer-to-peer network.
A word I have heard before, but I don't know what it means, is cryptocurrency.
So it's any form of currency that exists digitally or virtually and uses cryptography to secure the transactions. So not paper money or, bank money as we know it. This is like internet money. Marshall, did you know that Ethereum was co-founded in Waterloo by Vitalik Buterin?
Yeah, he is a Russian Canadian and is the world's youngest known crypto billionaire. And interestingly, he's also a University of Waterloo dropout.
I loved seeing that Buterin has donated over $100 billion in crypto to the India COVID Relief Fund and a range of other charities.
So I don't know this acronym, but what are NFTs?
Okay, so I best understood this one when my kids showed me a TikTok, and it is a non-fungible token. So your money that you use is fungible. The value can be changed, it can be interchanged, etc. But a non-fungible token is a unique cryptographic token that exists on the blockchain, and it cannot be replicated. There is proof that it's just its own thing, and there's only one available.
And how do you buy an NFT?
So we're going to be talking about a platform called OpenSea, and it's an NFT marketplace. It's a large digital marketplace for crypto collectibles and non-fungible tokens. I also recently read an article that LimeWire, do you remember that? It was like Napster, where you stole music from your friends or people on the web on like the same technology as blockchain. I have heard that they're rebranding as an NFT marketplace, which is interesting as well.
And what is a digital wallet?
Okay, so this one I found very tricky, and we dig into this one in the episode. So there isn't an easy, all-encompassing app for the world of Web3. You need to find a coin exchange that will allow you to take money from your credit card or your bank and put it into digital currency. And then from that coin exchange, you can transfer that digital currency into your digital wallet, which you can then use to purchase NFTs or trade for different cryptocurrencies or buy things online, I think.
And what is a computer?
On with the show, this is it.
We're all gathered here at the old schoolhouse at the KW Bilingual School, and let's have everyone introduce themselves.
I'm Esther Sanchez, an artist and illustrator.
I'm Janelle Chalouhi, and I'm CEO and founder of Venusverse, which is a local startup.
I'm Cindy Perri, otherwise known as Miss Misery, who is an NFT artist and illustrator and painter.
I'm Hilary Abel, and I am just a curious person.
Who showed up in a boys club.eth hat.
Love it.
Sarah, how did you meet everyone here?
Well, I have been trying to beef up my online presence over the last year. Now that I'm realizing how important it is to the work that I do. Somebody who I never knew before, Hilary Abel, had posted on LinkedIn, hey, are there any women out there who want to just get together and talk about Web3? And there might have been more to it than that, which you can explain, Hilary. But I was like, yes, I have no idea what this is, but I kind of do. And I want to talk about it with other women, definitely. So I answered that message, go to the meetup where I meet Cindy and Janelle, and Esther and I met in grade 9 French class.
Yeah.
At the back of the room, and I forget our teacher's name.
I don't remember, Mademoiselle something.
Or another. That's where I met in grade 9 French class, and we've been friends ever since, and we're collaborators, actually. We've done a lot of work together.
Yeah.
So we are here today, 150th episode, and we're celebrating by talking about Waterloo women in Web3. Boom. What does that mean?
So I guess back in early spring, I was starting to look for more people in Waterloo region who were in a Web3 space, or I didn't even know to call it Web3 at that point. I was in some other weird online world of crypto and stuff like that. And I ended up getting connected to Janelle through a friend, and we had the most wonderful and inspiring chat that really empowered me to be oh, I'm not crazy. There's something here to investigate. And from that chat, decided to just put it out on my LinkedIn, just totally random message. And as the universe and our community always works, there's resounding support and interest in that. So that turned into an event in May. And we had 27 women out, many who did not know each other or anything about this world, and they were just excited to be there. And it was just was generously hosted at Babylon Sisters. Janelle and I co-hosted it together, and it was just there was a buzz in the room. It was unbelievable, and so many new connections were made, I think, and people were really inspired to keep on their path.
So I go to that meetup. I drag Esther with me. And
she dragged me.
Well, Esther and I are usually trying to be super supportive of the stuff that we're up to. And I was this thing came up. We've talked about it in the past. We don't know what we're talking about. Will you come with me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you want to do this? And you were on board for sure. And so then for Esther and I to not only make those plans and then follow through on those plans and show up on the day is a big deal. It's a huge deal. And for both of us to walk into that room and start introducing ourselves to other women, asking questions. Hilary, you were amazing at, oh, you're interested in that? You should talk to Cindy. You should talk to Janelle, blah, blah, blah. And making those connections. And that was incredibly helpful in that time. But it was itching. I was just so interested, and I've bothered Marshall about it before. We should have a crypto. We need to talk about this space on our show because I don't know what it is. And he's like, I don't know if we should do that.
Yeah, I didn't understand anything you were saying. Yeah.
I couldn't answer, and I still can't. I couldn't answer the question, what is Web3, when I walked into that room. I had some very fumbly explanations. But the space was so generous, just being women were yeah, okay, that makes sense. Well, that's not quite like that. And I felt so welcomed and not stupid, which is such a big part of jumping into this world. So Janelle, what is Web3? Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun, dun. Here we go. So Web3 is the third iteration of the internet. So if you think about, let's go back to what Web 1 is. Web 1 was the basic interaction. So if we think about, I was alive during that time and I was using Web 1. It's the basic email interaction. And if you remember AOL.com, so simple ways of communicating through the internet. Web 2 became a much more centralized but bigger version of the internet. So
that's what most of us are in now.
That's exactly what we're in right now, although we're transitioning. There is a way, obviously a lot of people are starting to move into Web 3, but right now we are in Web 2. So Web 2 is actually more of a centralized, if you think about it, more centralized internet. So all the big social platforms, for example. So we have our TikToks, our Instagram, our Facebooks, really big central entities that hold our data and we interact with them. But there's also big conglomerates, like if you think about banks, if you think about telcos. So what happened yesterday is a perfect example and is a great use case for Web3 actually.
So in podcast time, today is the day after the big Rogers meltdown.
Yes, exactly. And we can get into that a little bit down the road. But what Web3 is actually, so if you think about Web2 being Lego blocks, so really big Lego blocks, kind of centralized, big towers. If you dismantle those towers and put all the Lego blocks on the table individually, that's essentially what Web3 looks like. So Web3 is a very decentralized model. So it's a system where it's decentralized, where we can all interact together, peer-to-peer. So I don't have to go through any central entities to interact. I don't have to go through, let's say, a bank. I don't have to go through any platforms. I don't have to go through Facebook or Instagram or anything like that. But we interact peer-to-peer. So I can actually buy and sell from a peer powered by crypto. So all of this is obviously powered by cryptocurrency, and it's very global. So I don't have to just interact here in Canada. I can interact anywhere in the world, transact anywhere in the world. And there's a few elements to Web3. So Web3 is not just about the blockchain itself, because blockchain is the underpinning system in which it's built on, which is incredibly effective because you can't alter it. It's cryptographically inscribed on the blockchain. So any transaction is actually cryptographically inscribed, so it can't be altered, can't be tampered with. And it's very transparent, which is actually what I really love about Web3. You can see all of what's happening very transparently. So there's very little room for corruption. If we do it right, obviously, it's still an unregulated space, so we can get into that too. Regulation is, I think, a necessity at some point. But it's just a way to empower individuals, I think, and empower small businesses in a way to kind of move away from the very centralized entity where they kind of hold everything and move into a more decentralized ecosystem where we can all kind of grow and prosper together is how I see it.
And own our own shit.
And own your own stuff, including data.
Yeah. Images, all of this stuff. My immediate response when I started to learn a little bit more was, how do I protect my children in this space? So the conversations surrounding Web3 for good are very interesting to me.
Yeah, so I do want to highlight a few elements of Web3 because there's multiple elements. So there's obviously the cryptocurrency piece. There's the metaverse piece, which, that will need to be regulated. All of it needs to be regulated, quite honestly. And then we have the smart contract aspect, which allows you to transact, on the back end without having to do very much. It's basically a contract that transacts through AI. And then you have your NFTs, which right now it's being seen as an art process, an authentic art process, but there's so much innovation that comes with NFTs and that will come with NFTs because it is an authentication process at its basic. So there's a lot of different elements to Web3 too.
Can I add in two other areas of Web3 that I'm really interested in, which are related to that digital identity, and I think where that's going, and also DAOs, which are called DAO, so it's Decentralized Autonomous Organization, and there's a lot of interesting community engagement, community building that's happening there, and it's all of this stuff is just in this tiny baby infant stage of where it's all going.
100%.
Yeah.
And DAOs actually have the ability to change the future of work too. I personally think it could be the future of the workplace and the future of governance, right? There's a lot behind that. And it's an awesome voting system where everybody participates and you can vote. So yeah, DAOs, I personally think it's so underrated right now, but it's coming. What DAOs will do is disrupt pretty much everything.
I like it.
Yeah, so there does need to be some sort of oversight into how they're run. It's still nascent, so there's a lot of work that needs to be done on the back end to make it really super efficient. But what it is a voting mechanism where, token holders come in and they vote on, who's the next CEO? How are we going to spend this budget? Where are we going to move or what market are we going to move into next? So if you're a business, you can start having those conversations with your token holders and your stakeholders and you all vote on it. But what voting does is actually show where disparities are. So show who's supportive of something, who isn't, and that obviously drives conversation. So why are you not supportive of something? Why are you supportive of something? And that, to me, is the biggest benefit of a DAO, because if you work anywhere, the number one issue they always say is communication in the workplace is the biggest issue. So what you're trying to do right now is create communication by voting.
Oh my God, there's so many things I just want to jump in with.
Do it, jump in.
Oh my gosh.
Go for it.
There's so much power in it. sports fans being able to own their own team through a DAO is happening right now. People being able to support nonprofits or bootstrap their own company without needing venture capital and instead sourcing from within DAO, membership. It's just, the possibilities are endless.
So if we're going to dumb it down, if Bonn Park had a DAO, stop me at any point. Just be like, wait, you're saying it wrong. So if Bonn Park had a DAO, all of us would hold something. Would it be tokens or NFTs? Tokens?
It could be
either.
Any kind of token, non-fungible token, or some people actually create the token, but you probably should know that this stuff is supercharged. I don't know if you know. So
No, I know,
government by
that.
itself.
Yeah,
so I mean, if we're going down this
about
path,
it
I just want
scams.
you to
No. I'm not saying we're going to do it. So if we were, then what Marshall and I do with our show could be voted on by the community that holds that.
Yeah, exactly.
And also how we spend our money could be
100%. So if you create a DAO and you have token holders, which are essentially stakeholders, right? And then don't forget, if you're getting into any of the space, Web3 space right now, you do need to talk to your lawyers. You do need to have lawyers. So I do want to preface that.
As a business,
as a person, even, quite honestly.
As a person.
Honestly, it's being unregulated. There's a lot of things like when that regulation hammer comes down, you just don't want to get caught in certain things, right? So,
and as we can see, history can just do the 1985 George Orwell and just start backtracking at any point.
Yeah. So the way it will work is, yes, you have tokens, non-fungible tokens. So for example, somebody can have a collection and build a DAO on top of it. What you want to do is actually enable those token holders to participate in your community. So you vote. So whether it's what's the next topic for your podcast, or how do you want to spend this money, or anything can be voted on, essentially.
Love this. Love this.
So what is crypto and what are NFTs?
So cryptocurrency are digital assets. So they're tokens, and they're powered on the blockchain. So the way to use them is through the blockchain, essentially. The idea is that it's token just as if it's money. Right, and non-fungible tokens are actually non-fungible, which means you can't replicate it. There's only one of a kind of each of these on the blockchain, recorded on the blockchain. You can't record more than one of them on the blockchain. They're supposed to be unique crypto assets. Now, how you differentiate is, for example, if you have one Bitcoin and I have one Bitcoin, the value of each of those Bitcoins are the same, right? But if I have an NFT, I am the only person who's supposed to have that crypto asset on the blockchain because it's a non-fungible token. It's a unique crypto asset. So a Bitcoin is a currency. You can see it as kind of like a digital currency, whereas a non-fungible token is an asset, and it's an authentication process too.
I often think about those in society who get kind of left behind due to technology.
Yep.
So one example I'll think of here is, let's go back 10 or 15 years. There would have been maybe people in their 70s who were like, I don't want to do email. I don't want credit cards. I'm fine, right?
Yep.
And then I saw at the St. Jacobs Farmers Market how old order Mennonites figured out at some point, like if we don't get phones, how are we going to do our business, right? Gone are the days where a vendor at the farmers market can just go to a Mennonite farm, grab stuff, and bring cat. It just doesn't work that way anymore. So there's people who are forced to kind of get caught up with times if they want to survive. I find that a little bit scary. And can you imagine looking down the road who might get left behind? It could be someone like me who's resistant to technology and change. Right?
Marshall just got his first cell phone this year.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. But I always think of those who get left behind.
Yeah.
It must be hard on them.
A lot of people can get left behind, essentially. But there's a lot of generations living on the planet all at once right now, right? Working in workplaces. And it's not going to be comfortable change necessarily, but it is here. People are already starting to move into Web3. All the massive conglomerates have already moved in, which is good, but it's also kind of a red flag because in a peer-to-peer network, what you want is more peers to move in. You want more people in there to kind of distribute the weight and the power. So there will be people that will feel left behind. But I do think, I personally believe there are solutions to all of this. I don't necessarily think that all the players should not have a space in Web3. So for example, banks will have a play in Web3 somehow. I do feel that there's an opportunity for them. I feel like government will definitely have a space in Web3. I am not that person that, is let's bypass everything and just, work one-on-one. I do think Government comes in with the regulation piece and getting out all the bad actors, and banks will have that opportunity, I think, to interact with the older demographic that aren't necessarily comfortable moving into technology. And I really think that's a role that they can play. And I also think the cybersecurity piece is a role that banks can play too. And you know what, if I have some crypto assets that I don't necessarily want to hold on my hard drive, I want to store them somewhere, and I have a trusted bank, if they have a way of storing these NFTs or crypto assets or cryptocurrency for me, I would want to do it with them because they know how to do this. They are built around cyber, and they know cyber better than anybody. So I do think there is the fear that people will be left behind, but I do think there's opportunities for everyone in Canada to figure out how to get into the space and how to move people along.
I see. It kind of almost may parallel electric vehicles.
Yep.
I have a lot of hope and faith that 30 years from now, everybody will be driving electric vehicles. So I see what you mean. Yeah, it's a good thing. It will be a good thing for everybody. Yeah, gotcha.
I just want to jump in saying that, we've all been there. We've been there at the point of not knowing what in the world this thing is and digging in and trying to discover more and learn.
Still there.
Right? Yeah. I feel like I'm a little more, I'm a bit further along into it, but definitely I've got a long way to go. And I think the technology is kind of at the same spot right now. We're at a very, very, beginning stage. It's very new. And I think as it grows, as more peers get into the space, it'll become more accessible. And I think in time, it'll be less likely that people will be left behind because it'll be easier to hop on board.
And I think what you're saying is it will take care of certain things. Two examples I think of is how so Ticketmaster over the years with concerts had to figure out how to deal with people who buy up loads of tickets and then resell them, right? Technology and concert promotions and music industry have to figure out how to get around that, right? And
they haven't.
It's
still broken.
There's still ways, right? Or the Perimeter Institute is doing amazing work right now dealing with or looking at supercomputers to deal with cracking codes and stuff like that, and always staying ahead so that they make things security so tight that the most brilliant and corrupt minds can't break those codes, I guess, right? And I think I understand what you're saying, that this will hopefully take care of a lot of
disparity too, by the way, and disparity and corruption, because when there is going to be so right now, absolutely what Cindy said, it's early adopter phase. It's very nascent. Very few people are in this space, which is why now's the time to jump in and learn more about what this is, right? Especially as a country. But the barriers of entry as we move along will be much lower. And again, don't forget it's peer-to-peer, so you no longer have to necessarily go through a bank. So perfect example of this is a home in St. Petersburg, Florida was sold with the deed as an NFT. All right. So what they did was they listed this deed on the blockchain, and they didn't have to go for credit score, right? Think of all the barriers of entry we have right now when we go to buy a home. Credit score, you have to go through the bank to get a loan, you have to go through a realtor, you have to go through a lawyer. None of that had to happen. It was a peer-to-peer transaction where it was done on the blockchain, obviously, and so officially recorded. And the NFT is the authentication process of that deed. And they just kept any of those fees that they would have had to pay to other entities to themselves. So it will lower the barrier of entry, making it more accessible for everybody to transact anywhere across the world. This is what we're entering into.
And people call Web3 the Wild Wild West, but man, if you want to talk Wild Wild West, real estate. Seriously.
Yeah.
The blind bidding, the lawyer's fee, everything is kind of crooked. A little bit. And it's meant to keep a ton of control on the regular people. When you talk about the space still being relatively new and confusing, Esther, let's talk about how much we leaned on Cindy this week. Poor Cindy.
Yeah.
I loved every minute of it.
I had a private chat on the side on WhatsApp with Cindy that's just called, ah!
That was my favorite.
And then we went over there because I was like, I know Esther is working. I cannot let her see all these questions I'm asking you. We can chat about this later. But let's talk about that because getting set up, and I leaned on Hilary as well here for this, getting set up with a help me with the language, like a coin exchange.
Yep.
Right? I think yesterday when we had lunch, I called it a money getter. And you corrected me.
What money getter do you use?
What money getter do you use?
Whatever you call it.
Which money getter will accept my cards? Which one will talk to my bank? Sorry, coin exchange will accept my cards. That process. So trying to get a coin exchange set up where I could take my dollars and get some crypto and then put it into my wallet so I can put it into OpenSea so that we could create these NFTs. So
Yes.
questions to Hilary, lots of questions to Cindy, and you gave us a couple hours of your time over a virtual meeting, which we really appreciate. How did you make your way through it?
It's an excellent question because let me tell you, I spent hours upon hours upon hours in forums on Reddit. Discord became a part of the community and I found I could get some answers there, but really it was just research and asking questions with as many people that I possibly could find through the web. Like there wasn't anyone locally that I knew of at the time that I could lean on, talk to. And at the time when I got into it in 2019, there were hardly any tutorials, YouTube videos. There wasn't really anything. So it was kind of just me going in there blind and saying, okay, like what's the first step? Where do I go from here? So it was a long learning process.
And like searching for stuff isn't quite up to speed yet. Esther and I were searching, what is a NFT property of speed? And we're like, this question is not working.
Yeah, like we're like, how do we even ask this? What is this? And so we're just like typing in words into Google because we don't want to like text you guys anymore.
We were trying to like have some autonomy and like figure it out.
Yeah, there's like such I feel like a theme of Web3 in my experience has been people's generosity of time.
Yes,
and
totally.
understanding and skills. I think maybe because it's so fresh and new, people just, when you find someone who's like on the same page or asking a question where you're like, oh, yes, I see the same thing in you where I was, a few weeks or days or months ago or whatever. And it's just I've been blown away by the generosity of people and women in this area for sure.
Yeah. I agree with that 100%. And that's part of my journey into the NFT art world. I leaned on so many artists in the space and asked them a ton of questions. And they were so generous to just lend me their time through Twitter. It would be direct messages and they would come back to me, Instagram, and answer my questions. And I thought, holy, like that just to me, it blew me away. It made me feel a lot more comfortable in the space. And it is probably why so many NFT artists want to be a part of that community because that's what it's all about. It's all about supporting each other.
How is a NFT artist defined? Like, you earlier said you're a painter, right? I know what a sculptor is. I know what a digital artist is.
Yeah, that's a really good question, actually, because I think a lot of NFT artists are just artists. And the NFT is another medium, another channel to get your work out there. So I think the term NFT artist is going away. I think it's more about just being called an artist and using the blockchain and NFTs as a medium for,
right, so someone
for your
still
work.
is an illustrator.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are so many artists that have been around for, 20 years that got into the space. And then there's new artists like me who use the space to get into art. So it's a really, really unique community.
Can we dive into that a little bit too? Because that's a lot that you just said there. You use the space to get into art. Mm-hmm. What is this story?
Yeah, so it actually, this is why I have this love for the blockchain and NFT art is because I've always been into art. I pursued a career in graphic design because of it. And I always wanted to be an artist, quote unquote. But I was too afraid. My confidence wasn't there. I thought there's no way if I can't paint something as good as the Mona Lisa, then why would I even try? So
Imposter Syndrome.
Yes. Comparison pants were on. And so, I started dabbling in the crypto space and there was this buzz about NFT artwork and I kind of started doing some more research into it, and I thought, oh my goodness, I do things digitally as a graphic designer. So, hey, maybe I can start putting some work out there through this NFT thing, whatever this thing is. And then, so what I realized was that because of the community being so accepting, it gave me the confidence to say, hey, nobody knows me in this space. I'm making all these new connections. I'm going to put my work out there. And it gave me that confidence to do so because there weren't any barriers. I could just get my work out there and it was out there for people to see. And for an artist, that's a really hard thing to do. And so that's what, I absolutely love NFT art for that reason. And now it's spilling into more, real life items where I'm actually putting paint to canvas now because I have the confidence to do so. The community that I found was a bunch of female artists, and they invited me into Graffiti Queens, which was a show in Decentraland. And I literally had 2 pieces of art at the time, and they were like, come on in, show your art. Where would that happen in the real world? Nowhere, right?
Or you're at the mercy of a gallery.
Exactly.
So that's the other piece, right? It's another central entity, which there's a place for galleries in all of this too.
For sure.
There is.
Yeah, 40%.
Yeah, which is completely eliminated in the NFT world. So, I mean, that to me is a huge part of my story and why I have the confidence to pursue what I'm doing now.
Man,
So amazing.
Doesn't that feel good?
It feels so good. Like
so good.
to say that I'm an NFT artist or an artist or a painter in general is just weird for me to say. Like this is the platform that I've said it for the first time, and it's so I'm so proud.
Cindy's an artist, an NFT artist.
Marshall, Ms. Misery, Cindy has an NFT that is a documentary film of a piece of art she's creating. So the NFT is a video.
Yes.
I mean.
Well, and the art too in the
Yes.
video itself.
Oh,
right?
Yes.
Totally.
Yeah. So the piece, it's all about, for me, letting go. There's a theme in my art. It's letting go of any, self-doubt and really accepting my own authentic self through my art. And part of that is being a graphic designer for so long in branding marketing. Perfection is a really big part of what you do. It has to be perfect. And so what I wanted to do was start releasing that perfection and say, okay, if I create a piece, I'm not going to hum and haw over it for months. When it's done, it's done. How can I force myself to grow in that area? How can I force myself to do that? So I came up with this idea. I'm a huge heavy metal lover. I love music. It inspires me. I thought, well, what if I paint a piece to a song, a piece of music, and when that music is done, the art is done, and I can't touch it.
That's hard.
That's so hard.
Yeah. It's very cool.
But it's facing my fear, essentially, of going back and fussing over a piece for so many hours. When it's done, it's done. So another part of that is I think the whole creation process is so magical when you're creating art, when you're painting, when you're drawing, anything. And I thought that would be amazing to make an NFT out of that process, that magical experience, and put that on the blockchain and say, okay, you can buy this moment in time. And then the piece that I created in the NFT, as Janelle was saying, is also up for sale as an NFT in itself. And then I have the physical piece that's also for sale. So it's just this incredible way to bring everything together and present your work in a different way.
And what you taught us is that you can somehow connect the purchase of your digital piece of art on the blockchain, your NFT, with your paper piece of art or your tangible real life meat space piece of art.
IRL. Is that what the clickers are saying these days?
I did print out this.
Yeah, you did, didn't you? Yeah.
Riddles.eth. I did print out this list of terms, and Janelle had sent it through the group.
Yeah, we're giving riddles some airtime.
Love riddles. When I saw IRL, I'm like, I know what that means. And then /meat space, I was like, that is the best description of real life I've ever heard. Meat space. It's hilarious to me. me absolutely hilarious.
I love it.
I was going to ask Esther, as an artist, don't you find that there's a point where you start to see on your own work your own kind of mark making that is yours? You know what I mean? And hopefully you embrace it, right? And you go, these are the kind of marks that I make when I'm talking about that abstract kind of lines and things that you just naturally do because it's an inherent part of what you do. People do it when they people used to talk on the phone and kind of scribble on the phone book and stuff. So those kind of just, I think of them as inherently your marks, right? And then there's a point where you, I think you embrace them and that becomes part of your work so that somebody can see your work and go, I know that's an Esther Sanchez. And what that is that's your own personal mark making as opposed to very deliberate, I'm going to draw this.
I love that.
I've actually never thought of that before, and I love it because I agree with so much Cindy just said, because I'm also a graphic designer and a photo retoucher. And I'm going to add to that, you have people telling you what to do all the time. So you are just like sitting there and making other people's marks like perfect. So I love this, like what you just said, Marshall. Sorry, I'm just like absorbing that.
No, that's what this is.
Because I am a doodler, like on the phone, and I'm always doodling, and I'm doodling like in Zoom meetings and like in meetings at work. I've got doodles in front of me. So yeah, I've never thought of that. And actually through this NFT exploration, I'm looking at all of my work, and I have not deliberately discovered that I do have a unique style that's mine. I used to always try to do artwork trying to like think of what other people would like, you know, like, will other people like this? Like, it was never authentic and me. And so the sketches are me because no one's going to see them. They're just like in my closed sketchbook. But I've started opening my sketchbook, and I opened one from 2015, and that, well, we'll talk about it later, but that's the NFT. So the NFT, like this artwork has been sitting there, and I love it so much.
I love it.
And
so
I was
beautiful.
I know.
Well, let's
I
talk
know
about
it's
it
really
now,
good.
Instead, why are we waiting?
I'm
The
so
big
good.
reveal.
I was going to ask Esther this. So you find that sometimes it takes a long kind of passage of time before you realize what you subconsciously were doing, or
Yes.
I'll give you an example. So like you, I'm a huge heavy metal fan. So I would have gazed for hours in the 80s at Judas Priest, Iron Maiden, Ozzy Osbourne, Black Sabbath, Wasp, Venom Records, right? And there's a certain aesthetic to the way the fonts were very angular, often very strong, right?
Yeah.
And then even just like how the songs were written on the back, you know, and I would have been gazing at these records for hours and hours. Well, I have a very distinct way of printing. Just when I just write, people are always like,
It's gorgeous.
Yeah, they recognize my handwriting. Like, oh, this is Marshall's handwriting. There's no question, but it took decades for me to go, oh, I know exactly where that's from. That the way the M that's a Metallica M. You know what I mean?
My God,
And then add to that, I do lots of little stars, and that's from my childhood love of pro wrestling and being really attracted to the way the stars were on the ring. But it takes a long time before you go, oh, I know where that's from. That's from all those years, you know?
Yeah. That's so cool. Yeah. I mean, I don't think about it that deeply. But yeah, now I'm going to.
So should we go here? Should we talk about the NFT design? So you just talked about this sketch that's in front of you.
Yes.
And you pulled it out from 2015.
Yeah. So in 2015, I just moved to Kitchener from Toronto, and remote work wasn't so accepted. So I took on this contract that I would have to take the GO train to Toronto every day for like a couple months, which is insane because it takes like 2 hours to get there. So it's like 4 hours. And I was like, I'll just read. I'll just bring my sketchbooks. So I bought all of these awesome pens and some sketchbooks, and I was just going to like sit on the GO train and sketch. And I did. And I came I'm really happy with the sketches that I did. Cut to now, we're talking about NFTs. And I was thinking of just doing some geometric shapes or like something. I didn't want to do I've also created an Oracle deck, and I didn't want to use that artwork for this. I wanted to do something new. And so I sent Sarah a bunch of sketches that were like cute, like rainbows and like neighborhood. And I was thinking of doing something completely different. And then I was going to grab these jellyfish. That's the sketch that's sitting in front of me right now.
Paper and pen sketch.
Paper and pen sketch with the awesome pens that I bought for the Go Train. And I had it digitally. And I was like, oh my God, this would be so gorgeous as the NFT. And honestly, it took me not even an hour to do to do our collection.
I love it.
Yeah.
Love that.
We mentioned remote work because 2
Oh,
years
yeah,
ago, when everybody was whining about having to work from home and how hard it is,
Yeah.
I had a moment of, I told everyone that this is what it was like, and I didn't have time off.
Yes.
I had a moment of like, there you go, suckers, you know. But you blew up and became incredibly busy because people
my God.
immediately took it seriously.
Yeah, so I've been trying to work remotely forever since I moved to Kitchener. I don't like this 2-hour Go Train each way. Or I would like rent an Airbnb just for a couple weeks, which is fine because I love Toronto. But so when old clients started calling me, like my clients from New York started calling me, people from Toronto, all of these new agencies, people I don't even know were hitting me up on LinkedIn, and I was already set up. And like, so for me, this change has been amazing. I've never been so busy.
That's
so
awesome.
Yeah, so it's
You're
been
turning
great.
work away.
I can say no to work, which
That's
is
awesome.
crazy. But
So then the second thing I want to talk about was the process. So you
Yes.
have deeply explained the process to me of how this sketch in pen in front of you turned into what I have open on the iPad here. So
Yeah.
tell us about the like artistic process of that.
okay, so it's really technical. I take a picture with my cell phone, and then I airdrop it to my computer, and then I open it in Photoshop, and I created a mask using the channels in Photoshop of the line drawings. And then within that mask, you can put any color you want. You can like overlap colors. You can make gradients. You can do anything you want. I have all of these watercolor washes that I've made, with my brush, paint, and paper, and the same kind of thing. So I have all of these textures that I've created. So I could come up with like a bunch of different jellyfish using the same mask and different colors. So the final piece is a digital piece in Photoshop.
I love it.
And you have done all of our artwork for everything I've ever done, any logo, our Bonn Park logo, our unscripted spectacle artwork, everything that you've already done. So you took your existing logo that you made for Bonn Park, added this art, and she's made 3 different versions, which I'm going to show you, which Cindy helped us through the process of minting it on OpenSea.
Yeah.
And then we're going to sell them in conjunction with our web launch. Okay,
All
are
right.
we ready to see them?
Yes.
Okay.
I can't wait, actually.
This is the collection that Esther has made. I'll pass it around. Every time I click on one, I can't get back because OpenSea, help. So maybe we'll go that way.
I love it.
So
It's
Esther
so good.
spent some time on the deck in the sunshine yesterday. And initially, so this was Cindy's idea. Cindy said, Esther, I can help you with your first NFT. I've done it. I'd love to help you. Of course, we're talking about all that community, that delicious, gorgeous community feeling that Cindy was talking about. And then I think it was you, Cindy, who said, we can do it on the podcast.
Yeah.
This is
Like,
so much
let's
fun,
mint one.
right? So we kind of did it's not a live minting, but we were scared that it wasn't going to work properly. And then there's the whole fees part that, we'll get into later maybe.
Yeah.
So then Esther and I geeked out big time about adding properties to it once we understood what we were doing. Esther named all the colors for each jellyfish with these gorgeous, delicious names. We've been able to add her artist fee in. We figured that out, which is part of the smart contract.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
We're
There
gonna
you go.
I do want to add
I want to change my artist fee.
After this podcast.
Royalties.
Since I'm gonna be
Royalties.
famous.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
So I also want to say that the NFT has given me, or OpenSea, I guess, has given me a way to be organized and intentional, like what Marshall was just saying, because usually I'm just like, and I draw, and I have sketchbooks all over the place. My digital files are a mess. And we were doing this, and you have to be super organized. And I love it. I love that I would have never named each individual color of these jellyfish, and it kind of brought them to life a little bit more and gave me a deeper connection to the artwork in a way. So I really think this is great.
It's so good.
Yeah.
I feel like you guys should explain what minting is. I feel like that word throws people off.
I mean, if you could explain it to us, go for it. We did it,
but I like the word. I like the word.
Minted.
Minting is when you actually create it on the blockchain, when it first is created on the blockchain.
So what we did last night.
Do you put that on the blockchain last night?
Mm-hmm. On OpenSea.
You uploaded it last night? Then you minted.
We minted. It says it's minted.
You minted.
We just haven't put it up for
Listed
sale.
it.
Listed it.
Right.
Yes.
Yes,
That's fine.
Yeah. Okay.
Sorry to interrupt.
Not at all. Yeah. So it's as simple as that. Basically, once you create the piece on the blockchain, once it's created and established on the blockchain, that's when you mint it.
What's
That's called
validating?
mint.
I mean, I know what's validating for me personally, but like, what's validating an NFT?
So the NFT is validated through the blockchain. So once it's on the blockchain, any transactions that happen after that, so if you decide to sell it, you can see exactly who you sell it to, what time it's sold, if they put an offer on it instead of, buying it for the price that you listed it at, you can see what the offer was that they put on it, whether you accepted it or not. So essentially an incredibly transparent ledger of every single transaction ever.
So I was on OpenSea digging around, and I'm like, I can see.
You can see anything. So
everything.
if I buy one of the pieces and I decide to sell them so you can get your royalties, then the person who buys it from me will also be recorded on the blockchain. And it's in their wallet. You can go to their wallet if it's not hidden. You can see, basically click on it and see the entire transaction history of where that came from. And that's the authentication process behind NFTs.
I'm laughing
that's the
now
beauty
because
of
I'm
it.
like, what's hiding a wallet?
Hiding an NFT. You don't hide your wallet. You hide an NFT within your wallet. So if there's, it is part of like, there is a way that, through OpenSea, obviously, if you want to keep some things private or personal, I mean, it's still recorded on the blockchain. So if you want to dig, you can find it. But ideally, if it's in your wallet, you don't want everybody to see it. There is a hide option that you can actually hide, and you can always unhide it too. So yeah.
So how do people get these NFTs?
Okay, so we actually have on our new bondpark.com website, we have a section which is the Bonn Park shop. And there's a link to the NFT collection by Esther Sanchez right there in the shop, and it'll take you right through to OpenSea. And if you don't know how to receive an NFT, you can definitely contact us and we will walk you through that process or send you some instructions.
And why would I want to buy an NFT?
I think that you would probably want to buy it if you are, first of all, a collector of NFTs, if you're already in the space and collecting. If you're crypto curious, as Hilary said that she is, and you want to get in there and try something, getting an NFT is a really easy way to start. That's how I started. And then also, if you purchase one of those NFTs, you're supporting not only the Bonn Park podcast, but you're also supporting a local artist.
Oh, I see.
Let's take a minute here to thank Google Waterloo for sponsoring this episode.
Yeah, our 150th was a huge milestone for us.
So Marshall and I want to acknowledge all of the wonderful local businesses, artists, all kinds of attractions who have donated to our special 150th episode giveaway, which we have in conjunction with our brand new website that just launched today.
Here we go. Four Corners Algonquin.
Binghamton's Escape Works.
Complex Rooms.
Grand River Rocks.
Chicopee 2 Park.
Microplay.
Sweet Beauty Aesthetics.
Good Hair Company.
Artline Salon.
Gina's Spa.
Exclusive Elements.
President's Choice.
Sobeys.
Vincenzo's.
America Latino Grocery and Eatery.
Enyo's Pasta House.
The Hoother Hotel.
Golf Steakhouse and Seafood.
Soleil Restaurant.
Proof Kitchen and Lounge.
Mediterraneo Family Restaurant.
Country Boy Family Restaurant.
Classic Indian.
Jack's Family Restaurant.
The Crazy Canuck.
Mel's Diner.
The Milky Way Fine Cheese Shop.
La Fromagerie on Lexington.
St. Jacobs Market District.
Hurley's Country Farm Market.
Cobb's Bread.
Portuguesa Bakery and Pastry.
The Tamale Girl.
Bake My Day.
The Wine Shop.
Green Beaver.
Eco Cafe.
Bulk Barn.
Maison Orphy.
Kaplansky's Mustard.
Country Style Products.
Mitchell's Soup Company.
Solenzi Foods.
Taste the Fourth Sense.
Heartbeat Hot Sauce.
Cholula hot sauce.
Villain Sauce Company.
Soy sauce.
Beijing Taiga.
Garlic King.
Wicked Smart.
Ginger goat.
Marie Sharp's Canada.
Melinda's.
North Country Condiments.
Flippins.
Heiko's Hot Sauce.
Salem's Lot hot sauce.
Number 7 Mexican Hot Sauce.
Big Dog smoky hot sauce.
Big Stoolie Sauces.
Matute Sauce Co.
Purple Tongue Hot Sauce.
Out of the box.
Neil's Real Deal.
Counterpoint Brewing.
Waterloo Brewing.
Newstat Springs Brewery.
Stockyards Beverage Co.
TWB Brewing.
Jeweled by Jules.
Christensen Smith Gallery.
My Pet Skeleton.
Cindy Perri, aka Ms. Misery. Venus Verse. And Esther Sanchez Artist.
Though most of the giveaway prizes are all from local businesses, some of them are from outside Waterloo region. Sarah and I love Kaplansky's mustard, and you can find it in Waterloo at Brady's Meats, La Fromagerie on Lexington, Charles Qualley Meats, and Vincenzo's.
A lot of the hot sauces that we mentioned can be found at Taste the Four Cents, which has the widest selection of hot sauce you'll find anywhere, along with many made by local sauce makers. You can also find Melinda's and Marie Sharp's sauces at Loblaw stores.
Then there's Mason Orphy, Mitchell Soup Co., and Silenzi Foods. You can find them in several fine food shops around Waterloo region, along with Goodness Me, Farm Boy, and Sobeys.
And then, of course, anyone who knows our podcast knows that we love the St. Jacobs Farmers Market, and that's where you can find these vendors. Portuguesa Bakery and Pastry, the Garlic King, Bake My Day Butter Tarts, and the Tamale Girl.
We are so incredibly grateful that they've given us over $6,000 in value and prizes for our big Ultimate Waterloo Region giveaway.
Head over to our Instagram to enter into 2 of these giveaways. The big grand prize will be available to anyone who visits our website and subscribes to our email list. We'd love to have you follow us on our journey. Check it out.
Good luck.
And now back to the show. Marshall, are you having fun yet? We're talking about your 2 most favorite topics, finances and tech.
Right. I am finding this very fascinating.
There's such a contrast in your household where your wife, Sylvia, who is not only absolutely gorgeous, she's super duper smart. And she works in tech and she is a VR junkie.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, let's talk about that for a second.
Yeah, well, I want to say if you have a VR set, you better know what you're doing because there's a lot of updates and a lot of things to figure out along the way to resolve. This is not an Atari 2600 system.
Which you prefer and you probably still have one.
Yeah, exactly. I'm often intimidated by technology and I'm resistant to it. And it's an ongoing struggle, right? I feel powerless sometimes with a lot of it. And it's hard to depend on others to kind of explain it all to you or fix it or... the learning is slow for me. So when we talk about crypto and NFTs and all that, it's another language for sure, and there's a mystique to it that I find both really, really interesting, as I do with space science, but also scary. Yeah. So what I've been hearing from all of you is there's some really positive things to come, and it has to do with breaking down barriers. It's going to help a lot of people in situations where those barriers are keeping them from their own personal and professional growth, right? So Janelle, when you were speaking earlier, I was thinking a lot about a recent episode we did on the Women's Crisis Services of Waterloo Region. And through that, there was a lot of emphasis on how there's many forms of domestic abuse. A lot of people think of physical abuse, but there's also financial abuse. And I'm thinking a lot of what you're touching on here could possibly help women out of situations where there's financial abuse coming from their partner.
Yeah, so quite honestly, and this is really the inception of Venusverse, was when I was starting to talk to women. When I started getting into the space early 2021, I started looking into it. I was talking to women in my network and none of them were in the Web3 space at all, quite honestly, when I first started. And I started thinking that there is a bigger fundamental issue here, like for the fact that so many women aren't aware of crypto, aren't engaged in crypto, aren't really aware of what Web3 is. There must be something much bigger behind this. So as I started looking into stats, really there was only one stat at the time. It was from the Globe and Mail 2018. And that statistic was 4% of women in Canada are in the crypto, NFT, and Web3 space, and 96% of men in Canada are in that space. So for me,
that's scary.
It is very scary. Like if you think about the knowledge gap there in and of itself, like so many women are going to be left behind because we've already moved into this space too. Let's not forget that. So that statistic was what helped me decide that I wanted to launch this, because it is a fundamental issue and so many women are going to be left behind. So what we want to do is make sure to bridge that knowledge gap to help women get into this space, help them start thinking about Web3, especially during a great resignation. I mean, we're going through a great resignation in Canada right now. This is the perfect time to be learning new things and looking at new things and different ways of doing things, because Web3 is going to show up much faster than we know it. It's already moving very quickly. It's iterating very quickly. So it's a perfect time to start learning about it. And quite honestly, women are going to be left behind when it comes to the next generation wealth economy. There's a lot of money to be made in this space eventually. However you decide to do it, whether you're an entrepreneur that wants to launch your own business, if you want to start thinking about or investigating or looking into crypto a little bit, or even into NFTs. So there's a lot of opportunity, but women haven't been exposed to it in Canada, unfortunately. And that's really my mission. It's to help women get into the space and help them feel more confident getting into the space.
Yeah, I was going to say it's very empowering. Like, as someone who's just, to be honest, I think hearing that Cindy, which we go way back, hearing Cindy was moving into like NFT and Web3 world led me into being like, what is that? Why don't I know more about that? And that led me down like just breadcrumbs through a million different things. But right? But unlocking each of these different things and learning it for myself through whatever, YouTube or Twitter or whatever, it's really empowering. And then it's led me to, I think, being more empowered to explore other things around my financial life or my family's financial life, not necessarily in Web3, but it's just empowering to learn something and to be able to action it. And so anybody, I think, listening that it has that blind spot or I don't know, that gap, I just encourage them to start looking somewhere.
Yeah, and we've tried to make it pretty easy. So we actually have sessions online right now, one-on-one sessions that you can register for. And it really covers everything that Web3 is, really the basics, everything you need to know high level. And you can, at the end of the session, and some of you have already taken it, so you can probably comment on this. At the end of the session, you could probably figure out, how can I see myself in Web3? How can I apply what I do today into Web3? And that's the whole idea, to be more empowering for women and to help them bridge that gap and get in pretty quickly. And then, once you have the basics and you know all this knowledge, you go in and do your own research and figure out your own path. So, but to your point, Marshall, I think this is the opportunity where women who have struggled in relationships have the opportunity to look at, how can they diversify? How can they actually empower themselves and be empowered to look at different ways of transacting or making money or holding money? And I think that is the beauty of crypto. It actually allows women and men and whomever to diversify and look at different ways of doing things.
And this will be very interesting to those who study information science as well, right? The whole idea of who's showing things and who's hiding.
Exactly.
Hiding things and why they're doing that. Yeah.
The one thing I found incredibly, I don't know if empowering is the right word. It kind of blew my mind. Taking that training with Venusverse was, there are many ways that I can be in the space.
Exactly.
And one, Marshall, that you might find surprising is that there's employment there. There's a lot of employment opportunities in that space. And for me too, I was like, whoa, I could work in it? That's wild to me. That I just thought this was something where we all put on our Oculus or whatever and jump on in and go to our work meetings in our new outfits that are only available in the metaverse and that's where my mind was going. And I found that very overwhelming, but breaking it into different pieces where you can, buy crypto, you can trade, you can create art, you can buy art, whatever, and you can work there.
You can work for a Web3 company.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not a hard transition, to be honest with you. It's a pretty easy transition to make when you apply your skill sets into Web3. And quite honestly, we have amazing talent in Canada, which will be scooped up by companies across the world because we groom the best talent. And, if we think about
out.
Exactly. So unfortunately, our talent, if we don't capture them now into the Web3 space, they are going to be scooped up by other international countries. And that's the one thing that we should be very mindful of, I think. How do we keep our talent here? It's the biggest question government always asks. So this is your answer. How do we keep talent here? The idea is, start employing them into Web3 because it's incredible talent that we have, technical talent that can solve a lot of problems in the space. So I do think that there's a big talent play for us here too.
So I have a kid who's in the computer science program at Conestoga College, and the gender gap is massive.
Insane, isn't it?
It looks just like what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Is that related? Is that why there is such a massive gender gap when it comes to this? Because it's happening in the universities and in those fields. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So what my understanding, and I know this a little bit from my days at the University of Waterloo, is girls get into STEM or decide to get into STEM around the age of 12, believe it or not. That's when they feel like, yes, I'm going to either get into a more technical and more STEM role or not. And the idea, that's why a lot of different camps, a lot of different organizations are really focused on girls at that young age to help empower them and help them build the confidence into that role, into those, I guess, specialties. Because it isn't, right now, the way we've broken it down, it isn't very attractive for young girls and women because it is very male dominant. There's a lot of male talent in that space. The way women feel more comfortable is if obviously they're exposed to it at a younger age, they're feeling more comfortable with it, they're feeling more confident, and that's why they start at a younger age. So yeah, there's that gender gap that starts all the way from a very young age, unfortunately, which is what we need to start empowering a lot more.
So a previous guest, Sandy Curry, who's a Google's
I know Sandy very well.
Manager at right here in Waterloo.
I love Sandy.
Sandy has told us that STEM actually can begin in grade 1.
Yep, exactly. It could, you know what? Honestly, my kids were doing PowerPoints, I think 2 years ago. And I'm sitting here thinking like, when I graduated university was the first time I actually had to use a PowerPoint and present, before that. And that was way back, by the way. So yes, way back. But my kids,
embarrassing moment in an interview.
Honestly, but kids are starting to use this tech now at a very young age. So yeah, we should be getting them in at a very young age for sure.
And there's so many things that need to catch up. Walmart's toy department.
Oh, Marsha, I'm so glad you brought that up. Go there.
Yeah, I spent a lot of time in the toy department. Pink girl aisle, blue and black boy aisle. Right?
Yes. I never played with pink toys myself, and I felt weird about it.
Yeah. Like I see the differences in the clothing, kids' clothing for sure, but nothing's more evident than the toy department.
Interesting.
Right?
I actually haven't noticed that. Next time I will.
Go.
Really?
Go specifically
I will go just
reason.
to look.
And it's still, here's the pink aisle. Here's
Or I always laugh when it's like, hey, here's a version of Lego for girls. It's like,
yeah. What's wrong with regular?
I relate to this so hard because part of my artwork and expressing myself is to break down some of those gender stereotypes, because growing up, I've always been into things like, things that are considered boy, things like motorcycles and cars, and heavy metal is a really great example of that. She-Ra was my favorite toy because she was the only powerful female action figure that was out there, right? Yeah, She-Ra. I still have those action figures, by the way.
Amazing.
Yeah, so I relate to that because growing up, I would have been labeled, tomboy or, other words that would describe what I was. But the whole time I was like, these are just things that I love. And when I had a son and I went into the toy store and saw that these toys were very gender stereotyped, it really hit like a note for me. And I tried to encourage him to look around the store a little bit more and, not necessarily just at those blue things. So I totally understand what you're saying with that. It starts very young.
And I think in Web3, it's easy to think that it's just like tech and STEM related jobs, but there are so many jobs and fields and areas within Web3 that are beyond that or wider than that. And I think it's the same is true for no matter what your kind of interest is, whether your interest is like sports or games or wellness or beauty, all of that is in Web3 now. And it's just going to continue to grow. So no matter what your interest, there's kind of an entry point of where it meets Web3.
We've gone 20 years now trying to fix the errors of our ways in Web 2, right? We're still trying to scratch the surface. We're still trying to figure out the whole, gender gap, the arts and culture gap, it's massive, and we're still trying to fix it. Web3 is actually the chance to reset that and do it in a good way. Like, we just have to be good actors in the space, obviously. And that's, like I said, again, where regulation comes in. But we have to be good actors in the space. And it's a chance for us to build these systems and structures and models that actually work for everybody, where everyone feels included and everyone's winning. So the cognitive diversity behind getting women into the space is super important, because right now what we're building, with just a small subset of humanity, is we're building for a small subset of humanity. What we need is more cognitive diversity in the space. So women, artists, culture, and Web3 is an opportunity through the metaverse for us all to connect globally, quite honestly. Like, there are startups in India and China, apparently, that are now producing AR, VR glasses that compete with Apple glasses, and they're selling it for like $2 each. Like, think about the accessibility that allows for people across the world, right? So it is a way for us to connect globally too, and start to understand different cultures and how other countries work. There's such a massive opportunity behind everything around Web3 that I think we're not even scratching the surface right now with the things that we're talking about.
Bonn Park is made possible with the support of the Kitchener Public Library and the Kitchener-Waterloo Community Foundation.
Our show is produced by Sarah Geidlinger,
And Marshall Ward.
with audio engineering by Sarah Geidlinger.
Bonn Park's original music is by Alan Lung. Harry, still with us? We want to tell you about a fun project that we have. Are you ready?
Yeah.
We have another podcast called An Unscripted Spectacle, Wrestling with Wrestling. Here's Colin Hunter of Kayfabe News to tell you all about it.
Welcome to An Unscripted Spectacle, Wrestling with Wrestling. I'm Colin Hunter from Kayfabe News. Marshall is utterly obsessed with professional wrestling. Sarah is utterly perplexed by professional wrestling. On each episode of An Unscripted Spectacle, Marshall and Sarah talk with a different guest from the world of wrestling. Promoters, referees, journalists, and current and past stars of the Squared Circle, to talk deeply about the strange magic of professional wrestling that has enchanted Marshall his whole life. Can they turn Sarah into a fellow connoisseur of professional wrestling? She'll need some convincing.
I find out who Jimmy Corderas is. Who the heck are you?
Oh, well, that's a good question. For those who don't know, I spent the better part of over 2 decades working in WWF/WWE, mostly as a referee inside the ring.
I have the honor of meeting the magnificent Lufisto. I heard that you were described as the first lady of hardcore. I've just recently found out what hardcore is.
Yeah, thanks to Madman Pondo.
When I've learned that I was going to be inducted, it was like, it is now my time to tell the story of women's wrestling. Because so many times I've heard, oh, this is the first time this happens in women's wrestling history. And I'm like, no.
I learned all about the storytelling and writing process from Tom Casiello.
Yeah, I was in soap operas for 14 years. I was at Young and the Restless last. That was from 2009 to 2011. And so I thought, I'll go in for the interview. I'll be honest with them. If I blow it, I blow it. Not the end of the world. And I was there for 6 years. And I rose up the ranks to managing lead writer. And it was the most insane time period of my entire life.
I got a new skincare regime from RJ City. Checking out your hair, and I wish that mine looked like yours. You have beautiful locks.
Thank you. The secret, this isn't a plug, it feels like an endorsement, is aloe vera. I have it here. I put it on my skin. I put it in my hair. I use the gel. I put a couple drops of peppermint in.
I have a plant right there on my
Good.
fridge.
Cut it open, squeeze it out, and put it, honestly, wherever you want. It's good for you.
I find out that Colt Cabana is just famous enough that he can still buy groceries. And Tyson Kidd tells me all about the People's Elbow. Who knew?
Basically comes to a complete stop, then brings his leg over the guy like he's going to do a leg drop. But the leg like keeps circling past the guy, and then he drops an elbow on the guy.
Oh, and the elbow represents like all the people of the fans?
That's
like he's been voted, he's going to drop this elbow?
Well, like he started calling himself the People's Champion, and then that move just became the People's Elbow.
And then there's also, as you know, there's the People's Strudel.
Yeah. I mean, there's the people's eyebrow. There's a lot of the people who've got a lot of people.
So check out An Unscripted Spectacle, Wrestling with Wrestling. Available anywhere you get your podcasts.